Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women's Health Tech Wednesday. Typically, Nina Joshi is your host for the day, but she's having some technical issues, so I'm going to step in and host for today. I just wanted to quickly go over a couple of announcements before we get started and introduce our guest. We have our Digital Health Symposium coming up at the end of this month. It is regarding New York City Health Innovation Week's lessons learned, highlights, and breakthroughs. So if you weren't able to attend with us in person in New York City last week, we're actually going to be doing a little nice review for you virtually, open worldwide, and of course, it is free to register. So make sure you check that out on our website. And without further ado, I would love to welcome our guest for today, Dr. Shweta Patel, who is the founder of GAYA Wellness. Dr. Shweta, it would be great if you could introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, hello everyone. My name, I was introduced to Shweta Patel. I am a physician and OBGYN, and I'm also the founder of GAYA Wellness, a virtual first women's healthcare platform dedicated to providing integrated high-touch care, full circle, to women on demand. And I am very excited to be here, so thank you for having me, Ansley.
No, thank you so much. And I want to just kind of start off by asking you if you could share what inspired you to pursue a career being an OBGYN, and then how has your experience as a physician ultimately influenced your approach to women's healthcare today?
Sure. Actually, the funny story is that when I started medical school, the one thing I did remember saying literally as I was walking in the doors was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I sure know what I don't want to do. And that's probably looking at vaginas all day. So never say never, right? I actually left my obstetrical rotation all the way towards the end of my third year, which there's any physicians or medical students in the audience, like, you know, that you do the ones that you want to do upfront so that you can really kind of make those relationships when you're interviewing for fourth year. So when you're leaving things towards the end of the year, people already know like you're just killing time. And I rolled up to my my rotation, and in the first day I was just blown away by how much of continuity there was, a variety there was. You could do surgery, and you can also do, you know, long-term care. You had patients that were young, you had women that were older, and there were emergencies, but then there were also like just your standard comfortable, you know, moments of like, oh my God, look how big he is. So it was just a amazing spectrum of things that I could do, and I was kind of like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. And so that's how I decided. And you know, I ended up joining the military in medical school. They helped pay for my tuition, and was whole different ball game in military obstetrical care, and also great experience. But it was one of those experiences where you realize like, wow, women servicemen are, you know, a whole different breed of like needing care and continuity that is pretty critical in terms of when they're going across or overseas or defending our country, and then coming back and still doing all the things that women do here. It's like taking care of business, running their households, having babies. So it's been a fantastic experience being an obstetrician. I love it. It's my passion. I love working with women.
Amazing. And yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. It's so interesting to know that you are a veteran, that you served in the US Navy for nearly 15 years. So how did your military service also shape your perspective on healthcare, especially for women? I would love to understand your perspective, like kind of like on the other side as well.
Sure. I would say that first and foremost, best decision ever made right after obstetrics and gynecology. I think that the importance of learning like a level of like team and structure, you know, that was instilled in me. Coming in as a physician, I was very much encouraged to be an independent thinker and, you know, function self-sufficient island, right? And that is not how you work in the military. So it was definitely a little bit of a breakdown and restructuring of personality. But with that came also like learning that adaptability of working with different teams, different environments, and being able to still thrive or take any kind of situation and turn it into a positive one or a functioning one. And from the experience on the clinical end, I think that our training, I mean, the sheer volume we got to see simply because we were in a military facility
Right.
and in a military training program, it was, I feel like when discussing it with some of my civilian colleagues, I felt like I was really well prepared, if not possibly more prepared, to come out and function as an independent physician. And beyond that, also just the leadership, the accountability, the systematic approach to things, that level of like learning and instilling into my way of functioning was a huge, profound way that I find like now I function even in a business
Yeah.
or when working in the civilian setting. It's definitely impacted or molded who I am and how I function in that role. And then the ability to understand like the different ways medicine is delivered, in
Mm.
our country. And then recently also like learning how medicine is delivered abroad. But military medicine it has its strengths, it has its weaknesses, just like our system does. And I think being able to have that background and then come into the civilian side and do the comparison and realize like, wow, there is no such thing as the better system. Both systems definitely could be improved upon or integrated to develop something even stronger. And so I think that was really advantageous to have.
Absolutely. I think it's super life has a really crazy way of working out, right? Like you never really know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, but then all the steps along the way really help well round you out and give you different perspectives. And I'm sure like your time at med school as well as being in the Navy has really helped make you the person that you are today and given you some much needed perspective that you never would have had otherwise. So
Absolutely.
and I
Absolutely.
love that for you and that you were able to do that. And again, hats off to you for I'm sure taking on that challenge for so long. And
Thank you. Yeah.
also to, what specific challenges did you see in women's healthcare during your time as an OBGYN and in the Navy that led to your decision to launch GAYA Wellness?
Sure. So in the military, the challenges that I think that we would see in the field of women's health were very much related to continuity,
Mhm.
because physicians and service members, or physician service members and service members, we're constantly every couple of years we're moving. So there's never that element of long term with that one patient or with that one doctor. And
Right.
you can ask anybody who receives care through like military hospitals that is the concern. You could be coming to see the doctor, and then within a week that doctor could have like not planned but gotten deployed. And so
Right.
now like your surgery could be with somebody that you weren't expecting. And that's the needs of the Navy, that's the needs of the beast. Like it's just the way it is.
Right.
And I think our servicemen and women do a great job of adapting to that because they understand they're in it too. Like they get it, they might have to go and drop and pick up and move at any time as well. But that was the element that I feel like was you know that kept on coming up. Like, oh, I wish I could have my doctor, or I wish I had a sense of belonging to the provider, to the plan,
Right.
because with each different team or doctor, there could be differences in how they care or manage, and patients would feel that. But beyond that, what I did really appreciate with the military medical environment was like there was no hurdles or hoops you had to jump rather to get the care that you wanted to give. As a physician, it was a breath of fresh air. Ironically, starting there first, it was kind of like being spoiled, and then going into civilian medicine and realizing I have to prove why I want to give my patient a Mirena before I give her like birth control and this and that, and then she gets to qualify for a Mirena. That sucks.
Wow.
So from that perspective, it was awesome. Although of course, that comes with its own like level of restraints as well. But like all in all, those were some of the positives and those were some of the negatives.
Yeah.
When it came to Gaia, really, I think that my military history was all what was positive that was kind of being drawn upon when building Gaia. With my experience as a civilian physician, that's kind of really what inspired, like, the pain point that inspired starting Gaia. And I say that, like, with take it with a grain of salt. Every, like I said before, every organization or structure has its, pros and cons. But with the pandemic specifically, it became apparent that we could deliver care using the virtual model. It became necessary. And for women's health, that was still a very new, sandbox to play in, especially maternity care. In fact, I remember seeing ACOG, make American Congress of OBGYNs, our powers and fathers to be, they put out a statement during the pandemic saying it's okay to do telemedicine, because it was kind of like, we can't do telemedicine. How do you do telemedicine for babies and vaginas? That's not possible. And so, like, the brain block was so huge that I remember, like, the organization actually had to be like, let's just say we can, so that people are like, oh yeah, well, ACOG said it, so I guess we could. So it was kind of like slow to get going, but then once it did kick in and we were delivering virtual visits for women and realizing, like, this is amazing. Women don't have to worry about traveling when they're, to the office, or, well, if they're some women are pregnant for the first time, but a lot of women have multiple children that they have to figure out what to do with when they're going to an appointment. And towards the end of the pregnancy, you're coming in almost every week. So it's like leaving work, taking time off, childcare, transportation, parking, and then you get there for like a 15-minute visit, all need to do it all over again the next week. And some women, if they're complex, they have like a visit with their high-risk doctor, a visit with their OBGYN, a visit to the ultrasound, and they're like literally living in the office. And so being able to at all kind of from their comfort of their home with like a cup of coffee, decaf, was like awesome. And for us as physicians, it was like, wow, I'm actually getting a chance to talk to you, because I'm not spending the first, you're not spending the first 10 minutes of your visit getting all this administrative stuff done, and I'm like seeing 3 other patients. So the value there was apparent to me. And when the pandemic sort of lifted and results, or the restrictions from the pandemic were removed, and we were allowed to kind of go back to seeing patients in person, my concern was, why? Like, why are we see something that works? Why are it works better, even in my opinion. I don't think we need to get rid of in-person care. Obviously, they're not going to deliver their baby on the virtual visit yet, but but like, why are we taking backward steps? And obviously, not speaking from a business person in that setting, speaking as very much as a physician who loves the art of medicine, the answer was money. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. And the answer was, these offices, these organizations, these physical structures, the staff, the amenities that are required, all take money to manage and maintain. In other words, overhead. And to me, it was like, well, if there wasn't any overhead, or if there was a leaner overhead, then we could afford to offer these services without having to constantly increase production to cover the increasing costs. Well, it's like, well, why don't you decrease costs? And therefore, you don't have to worry about reducing quality of overproduction. Yet that didn't go so well. At least, in my head, it was going really well, but when I delivered that, it didn't go so well. So that's how, the bifurcation of me in continuing in civilian medicine as an employee, to me taking on the role of going off on my own and figuring out how I'm going to deliver what I'm seeing in my head, but actually making it so that it's viable, profitable, because, oh shoot, they weren't wrong. Businesses do actually have to profit in order to stay open, to be able to give the care they want to give, and then to actually scale it to be a national provider. So that's how Gaia was born.
Well, I just want to say, just the thought of like eliminating a lot of those in-person visits, like you said, there's so many external and personal factors that go into it. It just in terms of making it to as a doctor's appointment, especially while being a mom or expecting. I can't even imagine sometimes the struggles that it does. You have to go through in order to be able to make those appointments in order just to make sure that your baby is healthy. And
Yes,
just eliminating that, and I can just log on to my computer real quick, do a check-in. It
right,
also feels more personable in a weird way. Sometimes virtual can be a little bit more personal than in person. So I love that you saw like the recognized that need for kind of eliminating some of those, not all, of course, definitely not all, but eliminating some of the in-person meetings that can be kind of hard to get to.
right.
And as you were
Thank
talking
you.
about Gaia Wellness, I figured I would also ask, what does the name Gaia Wellness mean? And can you also explain a little bit more detail what Gaia Wellness is and the mission and vision of your company?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that question. I don't get asked enough. So Gaia, Gaya, actually is a shortened version of the name of a goddess, a Hindu goddess called Gayatri. And she was actually the goddess that I was named after because
Oh,
one of her aliases is Shwetambari, and she is known for her strength, her wisdom, her resilience, and
love
in
that.
fact, her icon or her I guess you can call it like her stride. Like
Mhm.
most Hindu gods usually have a stride that they you know teleport on, and hers is a swan that it's like sitting in, and she's sitting in a lotus. And so that's where the logo for Gaia came from. It's a lotus, and it actually has a woman kind of like raising her hands in
Yeah,
between. That's some call it a woman, some call it a female body part. That we'll just keep it PC today, though. But
I'll
um,
bring it.
yes. So so that's where the name came from. And because it has kind of the like it sounds like Gaia, the word that we use for like Mother Earth. And so kind of the play on the two is where the name came from. And what Gaia Wellness, its vision, its mission is to transform how women are cared for and empower women to take better care of themselves and to have more information and access to care. And our services are virtual first approach to any service that women would need for their health. And though we started off and focused on the main few services that most women are seeking right now, the end goal is to be a one-stop integrative health platform for all of her needs. We started off with gynecologic health and offering holistic wellness in terms of like hormonal balance, weight loss guidance, and general gynecologic health, as well as preventative screening, with the plan to ultimately also expand into maternity care, first postpartum, because it's going to be easier to sort of roll that out. And I think like with the need that there is for women in those first 6 weeks, and they're kind of just sent off home with a living being to be autopiloted inside them, and now they have to manage their whole household again, their jobs and themselves, in addition to a baby, and their hormones are not even in their corner at the same time. And I feel like that is such a huge area or gap in care where we tell them, we'll see you back in 6 weeks because you're done, you're delivered, you did great, good job.
Right.
And so many women silently just they deal with it. They don't have to, they shouldn't have to, but they deal with it. And I think like, so I digress, but our next area of growth will be to start delivering postpartum care virtually, and then subsequently retrograde into maternity care, so that virtual services are, including high risk, offered in the setting of remote monitoring. Subsequently, also including fertility and behavioral health, so that it does become a full circle, everything you need. You don't have to go to an internal medicine doctor and a
Right.
behavioral health specialist and a nutritionist and your gynecologist for the pap smear. Like all of it can be delivered on one platform. And really the concierge level of care that a woman would get in concierge medicine style practices, that delivered on scale, leveraging AI and leveraging digital health tools.
Amazing. Well, I just wanted to first off say that I think you should be asked more often about why, GAYA Wellness got its name. What is its mission and vision? Because that's a lovely story. I love that. And now
Thank you.
every time I see the logo now, I'm be like, "Oh, I know what that means now. I love that." So
Thank
really
you.
creative. And, as you're kind of talking about like the AI driven technology and digital health tools, can you kind of explain a little bit more how Gaia uses that technology to personalize healthcare experience for women? And then how do you feel that technology has really helped improve their overall patient experience?
Sure. So I think that in the use of AI in medicine, in not such a fancy way, I mean, I wouldn't call it AI, but we've been automating medicine for a while. And so then when there's a concern of like, how are we going to navigate this new arena? But it's like, really, we're just becoming more sophisticated in the tools we're using. But the premise of using those tools has already been there. And AI is just like taking a regular vacuum cleaner and turning it into like a Roomba, right? Like now it has the capability of, right. It's so much more sophisticated. It knows how to not run into a wall. It knows how to map your floor. Right. And so it's like, wow, I can set, settings for schedules, and it can remember like rooms. And this is so much better. In that regard, Gaia is already utilizing those kinds of tools and technology to make what would otherwise take more time, require more manpower, and delivering it more efficiently in the form of like AI scribing or using, AI generated emails and notes and explanations for educational content, personalized to the patient, so that again they're getting information in a way that they're going to be best able to understand and digest it. And they're being, that level of like the silence or, radio silence that happens in between visits, where patients tend to forget what the plan was, or, forget that they even had an issue because the issue went away for a little bit. And so they didn't really fix it. It just kind of went away and became a problem for tomorrow. These are the areas where having just more smarter tools to communicate with our patients is kind of what we're utilizing currently. So very basic, right? Gaia is not like breaking the glass ceiling in that regard just yet. What we're working on, however, is definitely upping the ante on how we're going to deliver actual clinical decision making, and how we're going to leverage that so that access to care has a shorter delay, and access to care has a lower cost, as well as the overall outcome in health endpoints is better, because there is that less time and less barrier to entry to receive care. And I think that with that is going to be where it really starts to we're really kind of using that lever better, because right now it's, with physicians being burned out with high cost of healthcare, with high volume of patients and high complexity of care. I don't know if you noticed, but Americans aren't healthy. And so like one patient feels like 20 when trying to take care of them comprehensively. And so what happens in the current healthcare system is not healthcare delivery, at least not in my opinion. And I apologize if anybody disagrees with that. We try as physicians to deliver health and to deliver care and to improve our patients' quality of life, but it gets lost in a lot of the stuff in between. And so I think that allowing these tools to decrease the amount of administrative burden, decrease the time in between, will help really improve healthcare outcomes, at least reduce bad outcomes, which worth taking on. So, but that's how Gaia is dipping its toes into the dark side.
The dark side. Well, no, I like the reference to kind of two of the vacuum versus a Roomba. It gives a really good perspective, because it's not replacing anything necessarily. It's just making your life easier, and being more efficient, I guess would be a really good way to describe that. And
Right.
time is flying, so we really only have time for one more question, but I think this one is super
Sure.
important for our audience. Could you walk
Yeah.
us through the patient journey from the initial touch point with Gaia to then becoming a part of the long-term wellness plan?
Sure, absolutely. So usually we'll have our patients coming in from various channels, social media, Google, etc. They will fall on the platform, select a service. It's very much like if you're going to a massage, online massage booking, and you click the service that you want. You're taken to our calendar. You select a time and date. We are currently only doing self-pay, but our services are anywhere from $35 to $200. So the
Wow.
range, it's not like as bad as most people would think when we say we're not taking insurance.
Right.
And in the process of that, the next point is that they meet with the physician. They discuss their healthcare concerns. On their visit, right after, once a plan is developed, the patient is delivered at the end of their visit a copy of their, if they wanted, a copy of their note because it's AI scribed. And so it's essentially like a dictation of the entire discussion, for their labs so that they can print them and take them to any lab of their choice and get their blood work done. They're delivered their imaging orders, and the prescriptions are electronically sent to their pharmacy of choice. And then we will follow up with them so that we're making sure that they have followed through on their plan, or if they needed to have a follow-up for additional concerns. There on out, they're put into a nurturing educational newsletter system so that they're constantly being sort of introduced to opportunities to take advantage of our other services as well as improve their health. And then subsequently, what we're improving upon right now is we have something called an express visit, which basically is asynchronous care delivery. The patient is able to go on, answer questions basically about what their concern is without interacting with an actual physician. They're able to get things like their prescriptions refilled, lab orders, and or get care in the middle of the night if they needed. So, yeah.
Well, again, I first off, I want to ask too if you've ever thought about pursuing marketing, because again, the way that you were just like describing this stuff, it just clicks in my brain. So I love the logo,
You're so sweet.
part of
Thank
it,
you.
analogies. So I'm just again, hats off to you, Dr. Shweta, for not only an amazing conversation, but an amazing background, of just everything that you've accomplished and will continue to accomplish. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where GAYA Wellness is
Thank
going to
you.
be in the future. So thank you so much for taking the time
Thank
to chat
you.
with us today. Your information will be in the chat box. So please, anyone who's interested in connecting, learning more, please feel free to give Dr. Shweta a follow on LinkedIn or connect with her. And again,
Yes, please.
thank you so much for your time today. The time always flies, so we'll have to have you to come back probably in the future and get an update on where you are in the future.
Sounds lovely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I just wanted to remind everybody to please join us next week. Also wanted to thank our sponsors who make conversations like this happen. One last huge shout out to Dr. Shweta Patel again for her time today and a really enlightening conversation. Thank you everyone for joining us for Women's Health Tech Wednesday. See you next week, and I hope you have a great one.